Get down and kiss the dirt, black dog who let you off the leash this late.
2 a.m. A black woman cuffed on cold pavement. An officer standing over her like she was nothing. She turned her head just enough to speak.
I've done nothing wrong. You have no right.
His boot stepped closer.
You stink up my county driving around this late. You don't get rights.
She went quiet. Not because she was afraid, because she was memorizing. Badge number, timestamp, every filthy word. He'd searched her car already, tore through everything, even opened the glove box, held a black leather wallet in his hand, and tossed it back without a glance. That wallet held FBI credentials with her name on it, and that lazy, careless moment was about to destroy everything he'd built in 12 years. Man, you have no idea how deep this thing goes. Let me take you back 2 days before that night. 2 days before that night, Olivia Palmer walked through the glass doors of the FBI Richmond field office like she had every morning for the past 6 years. Badge clipped to her belt, blazer pressed, stride steady. She nodded at the security desk by name, grabbed a coffee from the second-floor break room, and headed to her office. Nothing about this morning said her life was about to change. She sat across from her partner, Special Agent Nathan Cross, in a cramped office cluttered with folders, sticky notes, and 2 monitors showing database queries that hadn't been closed from the night before. Nathan slid a manila folder across the desk. 3 new complaints came in, all black drivers, all pulled over after midnight in Caldwell County, all charged with possession they swear was planted. Olivia opened the folder. 3 names, 3 mugshots, 3 people whose lives had been rearranged by a traffic stop they never should have had. Body cam footage? Nathan shook his head. Corrupted. Every single file. Same story as the last batch. She leaned back in her chair. That's not a coincidence anymore. No, it's a pattern. Caldwell County. Rural, quiet, mostly white. 40 officers in the entire sheriff's department. 1 gas station open past midnight. Dark 2-lane roads lined with pine trees and nothing else. The kind of place where a badge meant whatever the person wearing it wanted it to mean. And the data backed that up. In the past year alone, black drivers made up just 12% of Caldwell County's population, but accounted for 61% of nighttime traffic stops. Most of those stops were initiated by the same handful of officers. And the one name that showed up more than any other was Derek Watkins. Olivia knew this case was personal, in ways she didn't talk about at work. She grew up in a working-class neighborhood in Norfolk. Her father was a city detective, retired early. Heart gave out when she was 22. That was the same year she entered the academy. She still wore his badge chain around her neck, every single day. A thin gold chain most people mistook for jewelry. Her mother, Denise Palmer, still lived in Norfolk, called every Sunday without fail. And the last time they spoke, Denise said something Olivia couldn't shake. "You be careful out there, baby. Not everybody sees the badge first." Olivia laughed. "Mama, I am the badge." Denise didn't laugh back. Friday evening. Olivia prepared for a solo recon drive through Caldwell County. No raid, no arrest, just observation. Logging patrol patterns, timing stops, mapping the routes where complaints clustered. She'd drive her personal vehicle. A dark blue 2019 Chevrolet Malibu. Clean, modest, nothing about it that said federal agent. She placed her FBI credential wallet in the glove box, standard protocol when operating undercover in a personal car. No badge on the belt, no weapon, locked in a biometric safe back at her apartment. No earpiece, no vest, no backup on the road. Just her, the car, and a lavender air freshener swinging gently from the rearview mirror. She texted Nathan before pulling out of the parking garage. Heading south, solo run, back by dawn. His reply came fast. Stay frosty. She drove south on I-95, then turned off onto the smaller highways that fed into Caldwell County. The suburbs faded, the streetlights thinned, the road narrowed to 2 lanes, hemmed in by trees so tall their branches laced together overhead like a tunnel. She passed through the county seat around 11, drove by the gas station, closed early tonight, made a slow loop on Route 15, the stretch where most of the complaints originated. She clocked a patrol car sitting in a church parking lot. Lights off, engine running, just sitting there, watching. She didn't stop, didn't slow down, just noted it and kept moving. By 1 in the morning, she'd covered the route twice. Nothing unusual. She turned north, heading back toward the interstate. Cruise control set to 53 in a 55 zone. Headlights on, seatbelt fastened, every traffic law obeyed to the letter. And then, in her rearview mirror, headlights. Close, getting closer. Then red and blue. She exhaled, long and slow. Pulled onto the gravel shoulder, put the car in park, hands on the wheel at 10 and 2. Window down before the officer reached her door. Everything her father ever taught her, everything every black parent teaches their child about this exact moment. And none of it was going to matter. The flashlight hit her face before the officer said a word. He stood at her window, one hand on the beam, the other resting on his belt. Not on his holster, on his belt. Casual, like this was routine, like she was routine. Officer Derek Watkins, 38 years old, 12-year veteran of the Caldwell County Sheriff's Department. Broad shoulders, crew cut, a pair of reflective sunglasses pushed up on his forehead at 2 in the morning, for no reason other than habit. He scanned the inside of her car with the flashlight. Back seat, passenger seat, dashboard. Before he even acknowledged she existed. License and registration. No good evening, no ma'am, no reason for the stop. Just a command delivered to a face he'd already decided didn't belong here. Olivia kept her voice even. Good evening, officer. My license is in my purse on the passenger's seat. I'm going to reach for it, slowly. He didn't respond, didn't nod, just held the flashlight steady on her face like he was studying something under a microscope. She reached for her purse, pulled out her license, handed it over with the registration from the visor. He took both without looking at them. You know why I stopped you? No, sir. Your left tail light was flickering. It wasn't. She had checked every light on the vehicle before departure. FBI protocol for undercover operations. Headlights, brake lights, turn signals, tail lights, all functioning. She knew it. But she said nothing. Then he pointed the flashlight at her rearview mirror, at the lavender air freshener hanging there. And that, obstructing your view, that's a violation. A lavender air freshener, 3 inches long, hanging from a mirror, on a car, parked on the side of a dark road at 2 in the morning, with no other traffic in sight. An obstruction. Olivia felt the gears turning in her chest. She knew exactly what this was. Pretext. Manufactured justification. The same playbook she'd been reading about in case files for months. Flickering tail light that doesn't flicker. Air freshener that doesn't obstruct. Reasons that aren't reasons. They're permissions. The kind an officer gives himself when he's already decided what he's going to do. But she swallowed it. All of it. Because she was not Olivia Palmer, citizen. She was Special Agent Olivia Palmer, FBI in the middle of an active undercover operation, and the man standing at her window might very well be one of the subjects she was investigating. She could not break cover. Watkins walked back to his patrol car with her documents. And then he sat there. She watched the clock on her dashboard. 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5, 7. Her phone buzzed in the cup holder. A text from Nathan. "You good?" She didn't touch it. Reaching for a phone during a traffic stop is how situations escalate. She let it buzz and go dark. 9 minutes, 10, 11. He was running her information. Or he was making her wait. Both served the same purpose: control. Let the silence do the work. Let the minutes stack up until the person in the driver's seat starts to sweat, starts to fidget, starts to give you a reason. Olivia didn't sweat. She didn't fidget. She sat with her hands at 10 and 2 and breathed. At minute 11, Watkins returned. His posture had changed. Shoulders squared, jaw set. Whatever he found, or didn't find, in those 11 minutes had made him harder. "Step out of the vehicle." "Officer, may I ask what this is?" "I said step out. Now." She knew this moment. She'd trained for it at Quantico. When an undercover agent is stopped by law enforcement during an active operation, protocol is clear. Comply, document, report later. Do not reveal your identity. Do not compromise the investigation. Do not break cover under any circumstances short of imminent mortal danger. She was not in mortal danger. Not yet. She opened the door, stepped out onto the gravel shoulder. The night air was cool, pine and damp earth. Somewhere far off, a dog barked. She stood 5'7" in flat shoes, dark jeans, fitted black top, no jacket, no weapon, no badge, nothing on her body that said anything other than ordinary woman on an ordinary road at an extraordinary hour. Watkins looked her up and down, not assessing a threat, assessing something else. Headlights appeared behind the patrol car, a second unit. The door opened and out stepped Officer Tanya Beckett, 25, fresh from the academy, with wide eyes and a hand hovering near her holster, like she was arriving at a crime scene instead of a traffic stop. Watkins didn't greet her, just pointed at Olivia. "Keep your eyes on her." Beckett nodded. No questions asked. Then Watkins turned back to Olivia. "I'm going to search your vehicle." "I don't consent to a search, officer." He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the coffee on his breath. "I'm not asking." "On what grounds?" "I smell marijuana." There was no marijuana. There had never been marijuana in this car. Olivia Palmer did not smoke. The car smelled like lavender and upholstery cleaner. But the word had been said, and in Caldwell County, on a dark road at 2 a.m, the word of a 12-year officer outweighed the word of a black woman by a margin so wide you could drive a truck through it. He searched the car. Methodically, aggressively. He pulled apart the back seat, emptied the center console, checked under the floor mats, opened the trunk, and felt along the lining. Found nothing, because there was nothing to find. Then he opened the glove box. Inside, the vehicle registration she'd already handed him, an owner's manual, a small flashlight, and beneath the manual, a black leather credential wallet with a gold seal embossed on the front. He picked up the flashlight, clicked it on and off, put it back. He did not touch the wallet. He did not open it. He closed the glove box and moved on. He found nothing. No drugs, no weapons, no contraband. Not a single thing that justified the stop, the search, or what came next. "Hands on the trunk." She complied. He patted her down, roughly, impersonally. Then the handcuffs came out. "Officer, this is not necessary. I've cooperated with everything you've—" "Turn around." The cuffs clicked around her wrists. Cold metal, too tight. And then his hand was on the back of her head. Not guiding. Pushing. Forcing. Down, past the trunk, past the bumper, all the way to the ground. Her knees hit gravel first. Then her palms. Except her hands were behind her back, so there was nothing to catch her. Her shoulder hit next. Then her cheek. The asphalt was cold and rough and smelled like oil and rain. A pebble pressed into her jaw. She could feel the grit embedding in her skin. The world tilted sideways. Red and blue lights pulsed above her, painting the pine trees in emergency colors. 6 feet away, Tanya Beckett stood perfectly still, mouth slightly open, eyes wide, hands at her sides, doing nothing, saying nothing. Watkins stood over Olivia, and he said it like it was nothing, like it was a line he'd used before, like it was comfortable in his mouth. "You people always think you're above the law. Not in my county." She closed her eyes. The pebble dug deeper. She could hear his breathing. She could hear Beckett's silence. She could hear the hum of the patrol car engine and the distant bark of that same dog. And she did not say a word. Not because she couldn't, because she was doing something far harder than speaking. She was protecting an investigation that would save more people than this one night could destroy. Every second she stayed silent, the case stayed alive. Every second she endured, the corrupt officers she was hunting stayed unaware. She lay on the ground and let the system do what it does when no one is watching. He charged her with resisting a lawful order and obstruction of justice. She had not resisted. She had not obstructed. His own dash cam would prove that. Eventually. He put her in the back of his patrol car. She sat upright, gravel dust on her cheek, wrists aching from the cuffs, and watched her dark blue Malibu grow smaller in the rear window. Inside it, the lavender air freshener swung gently, and inside the glove box, the credential wallet sat undisturbed. Nah, hold on. This is insane. She's face down on the concrete. She could flash her badge and end this whole nightmare. But she doesn't. Now imagine that's you. You're lying there, not because you're weak, but because you're protecting something bigger than yourself. Could you do that? The Caldwell County Sheriff's Station smelled like burnt coffee and floor cleaner. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the kind that make everyone look sick. Linoleum tiles scuffed and yellowed. A vending machine humming in the corner. A clock on the wall that ticked loud enough to hear from across the room. 2:40 in the morning. Desk Sergeant Clay Morrison, 52, looked up from a paperback novel when the door opened. He watched Watkins walk in first, chest out, keys jangling. Then Olivia, cuffed, gravel dust on her cheek, a thin line of blood where the pebble had broken skin along her jaw. Morrison glanced at her, then at Watkins. "What have we got?" Not who. What. Watkins dropped his report on the counter. Resisting, obstruction, possible narcotic odor in the vehicle. Morrison looked at Olivia again. She met his eyes directly. Calm. Steady. The kind of calm that unsettles people who expect fear. He looked away first. Process her. And so they did. The machinery of the system engaged the way it always does, indifferent, efficient, mechanical. She was photographed against a gray wall, front, side. The camera flash was too bright, and the deputy behind it didn't bother to tell her when to look up. She was fingerprinted, each finger pressed into ink and rolled across the card by a clerk who held her hand like it was contaminated. Her personal belongings were placed in a clear plastic bag and cataloged on a form. Wallet, phone, car keys, a tube of lip balm. Each item tagged with a case number. Her name reduced to a line on a booking sheet. She was asked if she wanted to make a phone call. She declined. Not yet. She was still in operational mode, still protecting the case. One call to Nathan, one mention of the FBI, and word would spread through this station like wildfire. Every officer under investigation would know. Evidence would vanish. Informants would be exposed. Months of work. Gone in the time it takes to dial a number. So she said no. And they led her down a corridor with cinder block walls painted the color of old teeth. The holding cell was exactly what she expected. Concrete bench along one wall, steel toilet in the corner, no seat. A camera in the upper corner with a blinking red light. The door closed behind her with a sound that wasn't loud, but felt permanent. She sat down on the bench. The concrete was cold through her jeans. She leaned her head back against the wall and stared at the ceiling. Water stains. A hairline crack running from one corner to the other. The fluorescent tube flickering every few seconds like a pulse. She touched her neck. Her father's badge chain was still there. They hadn't taken it during processing. It looked like costume jewelry to them. Just a cheap gold chain on a woman they'd already decided wasn't worth a second look. She closed her eyes. And she began to reconstruct the night in her mind, detail by detail. The way Watkins' flashlight hit her face before he spoke. The 11 minutes he made her wait. The coffee on his breath when he leaned in. The exact pressure of his hand on the back of her head. The angle, downward, forceful, deliberate. The pebble, the words. Every single word. She was building a case from the inside of a cell with nothing but her memory. Down the hall, in the break room, Watkins poured himself a coffee like it was any other night. Beckett sat at a small table, staring at her hands. She hadn't said a word since they arrived at the station. Watkins leaned against the counter. Another one of those late-night joyrides. They think they can cruise through here whenever they want. Beckett didn't laugh. She picked at a hangnail on her thumb. She was pretty cooperative, Derek. Watkins shrugged. Cooperative and innocent aren't the same thing, Rook. You'll learn. Beckett didn't respond. She kept picking at her thumb until it bled. 3:15 in the morning. 14 miles away, Agent Nathan Cross sat on the edge of his bed, staring at his phone. His last text to Olivia, "You good?" still showed as delivered, not read. He sent another, "Liv, check in." Nothing. He called, straight to voicemail. Her phone was in a plastic evidence bag at the Caldwell County Station, powered down, cataloged, forgotten. Nathan opened his laptop, pulled up the GPS tracker on Olivia's assigned vehicle, standard FBI protocol for undercover recon runs. The Malibu was stationary, parked on the shoulder of Route 15 in Caldwell County. It hadn't moved in over an hour. His stomach dropped. She always checked in. Always. Even during the most routine runs. A quick text, a one-word reply, something. Silence meant something was wrong. He picked up his phone and dialed the FBI Richmond duty desk. "This is Special Agent Cross, badge number 6182. I need an emergency welfare check on Special Agent Olivia Palmer. Last known position, Route 15, Caldwell County. Vehicle stationary for over 70 minutes. She has not responded to communication in over an hour. Initiate immediately." He hung up, stood, started getting dressed. 40 miles south, in a holding cell that smelled like bleach and rust, Olivia Palmer lay on a concrete bench with her eyes closed. The fluorescent light hummed above her. She had not slept. She had not asked for a lawyer. She had not said 3 words that would end all of this in an instant. She could have. At any moment. "I'm an FBI agent." And the cuffs come off, the charges disappear, the apologies start falling like rain. But those words would also tell every dirty cop in Caldwell County that the federal government was watching. The investigation dies. The informants get exposed. The pending warrants get shredded. And the people in those case files, those 3 faces she studied in Nathan's office 2 days ago, they never get justice. So she lay there, silent, waiting, carrying the weight of a mission that was bigger than one night, one officer, and one woman's face on the pavement. The clock on the station wall ticked past 4 in the morning, and somewhere between Richmond and Caldwell County, the FBI was already moving. 5:50 in the morning. The sky outside the station was still dark, but the birds had started. That gray hour when the night shift gets sloppy and the coffee pot runs dry, and everyone is counting minutes until they can go home. Sergeant Morrison was doing exactly that, counting minutes, when the desk phone rang. He picked it up the way he picked up every call at this hour, half interested, already annoyed. Caldwell County Sheriff's Department, Sergeant Morrison. The voice on the other end was not half interested. It was sharp, federal, the kind of voice that doesn't waste a single syllable. This is Supervisory Special Agent Kathleen Doyle, FBI, Richmond Field Office. We have reason to believe one of our agents was detained at your facility within the last 4 hours. Her name is Olivia Palmer. I need confirmation of her status, and I need it right now. Morrison's hand stopped moving. His pen hovered above the logbook he'd been doodling in. He blinked once. Then he looked down at the booking sheet from 3 hours ago. The name was right there. Palmer, Olivia. Resisting. Obstruction. He looked up at the monitor showing the holding cell camera feed. There she was, sitting upright on the concrete bench, hands folded in her lap, looking directly at the camera like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. His mouth went dry. "Sergeant, are you there?" "Yes, ma'am. Yes, we have an Olivia Palmer in custody. She was brought in on resisting and obstruction charges at approximately 2:40 this morning." Silence on the line. The kind of silence that has weight to it. Then Doyle spoke again. Slower this time. Each word placed like a brick. "Listen to me very carefully. You will not process her further. You will not question her. You will not transfer her. 2 agents from this office are en route to your facility. They will arrive within 40 minutes. Until then, nothing happens. Is that understood?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. And Sergeant, I'm going to need the name of the arresting officer." Morrison swallowed. "Officer Derek Watkins." Another silence. Shorter this time, but heavier. 40 minutes. The line went dead. Morrison set the phone down. He stared at it for a moment, like it might ring again and tell him this was a mistake. It didn't. He picked up the internal line and dialed Watkins' home number. His hand was shaking, and he couldn't make it stop. 3 rings. 4. Then a voice, thick with sleep. "What?" "Derek, we've got a problem. The woman you brought in tonight. She's FBI." Silence. "That's ridiculous." Watkins' voice was already defensive, already loud. She had no ID on her, no badge, no credentials, nothing. She didn't say a single... Her credentials were in the glove box, Derek. You searched the car. A longer silence. Morrison could hear Watkins breathing, could hear the bed creak as he sat up. "She never said anything. She never told me she was..." "It doesn't matter. Richmond Field Office just called. They're sending agents. They'll be here in less than 40 minutes. No, this is wrong. She was driving through the county at 2 in the morning with no explanation. I followed procedure. I had every right to...
Derek. Morrison cut him off. His voice was flat now, tired. The voice of a man who could see the next 6 months of his life unraveling in real time. Just don't talk to anyone. Don't call anyone. Don't do anything until we figure out how bad this is. He hung up, sat in the quiet of the station, and listened to the clock tick and the fluorescent lights buzz and the vending machine hum. All the sounds that had been background noise an hour ago now sounded like a countdown.
6:30 in the morning. 2 black SUVs turned into the station parking lot. They didn't park in visitor spaces. They parked right at the front entrance, side by side, like a wall. Agent Nathan Cross stepped out of the lead vehicle, dark suit, no tie, face set in the expression of a man who had been driving fast for 40 minutes with nothing to do but think about what he was going to find. 2 additional agents flanked him. They moved together through the front door of the station, the way weather moves into a room. You feel it before you see it. Morrison stood up behind the desk. He had put on a fresh shirt. It didn't help. Nathan didn't extend his hand, didn't introduce himself, didn't look around the station or comment on the vending machine or the fluorescent lights or any of the small details that fill a room when people are trying to avoid the large ones. "Where is Agent Palmer?" Morrison led them down the corridor. His shoes squeaked on the linoleum. He unlocked the holding cell door. It swung open with a groan. Olivia stood. She'd been sitting on the bench in the same position she'd held for hours, composed, upright. Gravel dust still on her clothes. The thin cut along her jaw had dried into a dark line. Red marks circled both wrists where the cuffs had been. Nathan looked at her. He didn't speak immediately. He took in the abrasion on her jaw, the dust on her clothes, the marks on her wrists, the holding cell behind her, the concrete bench, the steel toilet, the blinking red camera. "You okay?" She nodded. One nod. Controlled. The kind of nod that holds back everything behind it. Nathan turned to Morrison. Every trace of patience left his voice. "I need the following, and I need it within 1 hour. Booking report. Incident report. Dashcam footage from every patrol vehicle on scene. Body camera footage from every officer present. Radio dispatch logs. Cell surveillance recordings. And the complete arrest file. All of it. 1 hour. Starting now." Morrison nodded fast. Too fast. "Yes, sir. Absolutely. Whatever you need." Nathan didn't acknowledge the eagerness. He turned back to Olivia. "Let's get you out of here." She walked out of the holding cell, down the corridor, past the booking desk where her fingerprints still sat on an ink card, past the break room where Watkins had laughed over coffee 5 hours earlier, past Morrison, who couldn't look at her, past the vending machine and the clock and the fluorescent lights and all the machinery of a system that had processed her like she was no one. She stepped through the front door of the station and into the morning. The sun was just breaking over the tree line. The air smelled like pine and wet grass and dew. She took a breath, her first full breath in hours, and held it. She was still wearing her father's badge chain. Later that morning, Nathan drove to Route 15 and recovered Olivia's Malibu from the shoulder where it had been left. He opened the glove box, reached beneath the owner's manual, and pulled out the black leather credential wallet. He opened it. FBI. Special Agent Olivia Palmer. Photo ID on the left, gold badge on the right. Holographic security seal catching the light. He photographed it in place. Chain of evidence. 4 ounces. That's what the wallet weighed. 4 ounces of leather and metal and government authority. It had been in Watkins' hand. He'd held it, tossed it back, and closed the glove box. Because he wasn't looking for who she was. He was looking for what he'd already decided she was. And those 4 ounces were about to bring the full weight of the federal government down on a man who couldn't be bothered to look. The investigation opened like a door that couldn't be closed again. Within 24 hours, 2 parallel cases were running. The FBI Richmond Field Office launched a civil rights investigation into Officer Derek Watkins and the Caldwell County Sheriff's Department. At the same time, the county's Internal Affairs Division opened its own inquiry, assigned to Captain Brenda Sullivan, 16 years in IA, methodical, thorough, and completely immune to the kind of pressure that makes other investigators look the other way. When a federal agent is unlawfully detained by local law enforcement, the bureaucratic response is massive. Federal civil rights statutes, state misconduct protocols, internal review, U.S. attorney oversight. Each layer adds weight. Each layer makes it harder to bury anything. Derek Watkins was about to learn what it feels like when the system turns around and looks him in the eye. Sullivan's team started with the footage. First, Watkins' dashcam, timestamp starting at 1:58 a.m., running continuously through arrest and transport. The findings were immediate. Olivia's left taillight, the one Watkins claimed was flickering, was functioning perfectly. Solid red. No flicker. Not a single frame showed irregularity. The pretext was fabricated. His own camera proved it. Her driving was lawful, 53 in a 55. No swerving, no violations. No legal basis for the stop. The air freshener he cited as obstructing her view was visible on camera. Small. Still. By no reasonable standard an obstruction. A second fabrication on his own equipment. Then Watkins' body camera. Corrupted. The file existed but wouldn't play. The same convenient malfunction that plagued stop after stop in the complaints Olivia had been investigating. The same gap where accountability should have been. But then, Beckett's camera. Officer Tanya Beckett's body camera ran uninterrupted from the moment she stepped out of her patrol car. Crystal clear, high definition, every second preserved. The footage showed everything Watkins' camera missed. The aggressive pat-down, the hand pushing Olivia's head down, the force that took her to the ground, the sound of her knees hitting gravel, and the audio, clear as a bell. You people always think you're above the law. Not in my county. Sullivan played it 3 times, then wrote it down, word for word. Beckett's interview came first. Small conference room, no windows. A table, 2 chairs, a recorder, and a glass of water Beckett didn't touch. She was nervous, fidgeting with a pen, clicking it open and closed, knee bouncing under the table. Sullivan started at the beginning. Walk me through the stop, Officer Beckett, from the moment you arrived. Beckett talked. Slowly. She described arriving, seeing Olivia outside the vehicle, standing to the side. She minimized, used words like firm when she meant aggressive, used directed when she meant forced. Sullivan let her finish. Then she turned a laptop screen toward Beckett and pressed play on the body camera footage. Paused it at the moment of impact. Olivia's cheek hitting asphalt. Your camera shows Agent Palmer was compliant throughout. She provided documents. She exited the vehicle. She acknowledged every command. At what point did you observe resistance? The pen stopped clicking. I didn't. Officer Watkins reported resistance and obstruction. Did you witness either? No, ma'am. Then why didn't you intervene? Beckett's eyes were wet. She looked at the table. Because he's got 12 years on me. Her voice cracked. And because I was afraid. Sullivan let the silence sit. Then she wrote something down and moved on. Beckett wasn't the villain. She was something more common. A witness who saw everything and did nothing. Not the officer who abuses power, but the one who stands 6 feet away and lets it happen. Watkins came in 3 days later. Civilian clothes, a union rep beside him, arms crossed. Watkins was sweating despite the air conditioning. Sullivan laid the evidence out like bricks. The functioning taillight, the harmless air freshener, Beckett's footage, the audio, the canine unit that swept Olivia's vehicle the next morning. 0 alert. No marijuana, no residue, no trace. The odor he claimed to smell never existed. Watkins sat through each piece with his jaw clenched. I followed my training. I had reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion of what? She was driving through the county at 2 a.m. That's unusual. Unusual for whom? He didn't answer. Sullivan placed a photograph on the table. Olivia's credential wallet, open, badge gleaming. You searched her vehicle. You opened the glove compartment. This was inside. You held it and put it back without opening it. Watkins stared. You didn't open it because you weren't looking for identification. You were looking for confirmation of something you'd already decided the moment you saw her face. The union rep shifted. Watkins said nothing. Sullivan closed the folder. She didn't raise her voice. The facts didn't require volume. Meanwhile, the FBI pulled the wider thread. Investigators cross-referenced Watkins' entire stop history with existing complaints. The numbers were impossible to misread. 3 years. 285 nighttime stops. 72% involved Black or Latino drivers. In a county where those groups made up less than 15% of the population. 38 stops resulted in drug charges, every one based on odor justification. In 31 of those cases, body camera footage was corrupted or missing. 14 convictions. 3 people currently in state correctional facilities on evidence now suspected of being fabricated. Olivia hadn't stumbled into a bad stop. She'd driven directly into the center of the pattern she was sent to investigate. Her debrief took place at FBI Richmond. 2 supervisors, a recorder, Nathan Cross in the corner. She was precise, clinical. Timestamps, locations, exact quotes. Steady voice, still hands. She did not waver. Until the pavement. Her fingers went to the gold chain at her neck. He put his hand on the back of my head and pushed me onto the asphalt. She stopped, took a breath. And I thought about my father. Every stop he survived in 30 years. Every time he had to be twice as calm, twice as dignified, just to make it home. Her eyes were wet, but her voice held. I am a federal agent. I carry credentials that open every door in this country. And even I ended up face down on a road at 2 in the morning because someone looked at me and decided I didn't belong. She looked at the recorder. If this happens to me, with everything I carry, what happens to the people who don't have a badge in their glove box? No one answered. The dominoes fell fast. County Police Chief Russell Townsend called an emergency meeting. He contacted the district attorney. 31 convictions tied to Watkins were flagged for review. 14 cases involving incarcerated individuals were referred for potential exoneration. The FBI expanded its investigation to 2 additional officers, frequent partners on Watkins' nighttime stops. Similar patterns, similar camera malfunctions. The corruption wasn't one man. It was a culture. Day 18. Captain Sullivan submitted her final report. 43 pages, every finding documented, cross-referenced, and supported by footage, audio, testimony, and data. She hand-delivered it to Chief Townsend's desk at 8 in the morning and stood in his office while he read the summary page. He didn't finish his coffee. That afternoon, the Caldwell County Sheriff's Department officially terminated Officer Derek Watkins. The termination letter was 4 paragraphs long and listed 5 causes: fabrication of probable cause, unlawful detention of a federal officer, use of excessive force, racially discriminatory policing practices, and deliberate destruction of body camera evidence. There was no press conference, no cameras, no public statement. Just a conference room, a form, and a cardboard box. Watkins sat across the table from Townsend and Sullivan. He was asked to surrender his badge and service weapon. He unclipped the badge slowly, the same badge he'd worn for 12 years, the same badge he'd used as a shield and a weapon, depending on who was standing in front of him. He placed it on the table, then the gun, then his department ID. He signed the form, picked up the cardboard box containing his personal belongings from his locker, walked out of the building and across the parking lot. Alone. The lot was empty. No one came to say goodbye. 12 years, ended by a 4-ounce wallet he couldn't be bothered to open. Day 45. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia filed federal charges against Derek Watkins. 2 counts. Deprivation of rights under color of law, 18 U.S.C. Section 242. And obstruction of justice for the systematic destruction of body camera evidence across multiple cases. If convicted on both counts, he faced up to 10 years in federal prison. 10 years. For a man who spent 12 years deciding who belonged and who didn't based on the color of their skin. The math doesn't balance. But the law was trying. Officer Tanya Beckett made her choice the same week. The U.S. Attorney offered a deal: full cooperation with the federal investigation in exchange for immunity from prosecution for her failure to intervene that night. She accepted without hesitation. She testified before a grand jury, not just about Olivia's stop, about others. Stops she'd witnessed where Watkins fabricated justifications. Stops where drivers were searched without cause. Stops where she stood 6 feet away and said nothing because 12 years of seniority felt heavier than her conscience. She named names, dates, locations, details she'd kept in her head the way Olivia kept them, memorized, stored, waiting for the moment they mattered. After her testimony, Beckett resigned from the department. She enrolled in a criminal justice reform program at a state university. She told Sullivan during her exit interview that she couldn't wear the uniform anymore. Not after what she'd seen. Not after what she'd allowed. Beckett didn't intervene that night. That failure would follow her for the rest of her life. But she chose to speak when it counted. And sometimes the beginning of change looks exactly like that. Someone who was silent, deciding they can't be silent anymore. Then came the 14. 14 people convicted on Derek Watkins' fabricated testimony. 14 lives rearranged by a man who planted evidence and erased the footage. The district attorney's office reviewed every case. Within 6 months, 9 convictions were vacated, charges dismissed, records cleared. 5 cases remained under review due to additional complicating evidence, but the process was moving. One man had served 3 years in a state correctional facility on a possession charge that Watkins manufactured from nothing. 3 years for a crime that never happened. He walked out on a Tuesday morning. The sun was bright and the air was warm, and his daughter was standing on the sidewalk waiting for him. She was 12 now. She'd been 9 when they took him. He knelt down on the sidewalk and held her. She held him back. Neither of them could speak. There was no narrator for that moment, no voiceover, no music. Just a father and a daughter on a sidewalk, trying to close a gap that should never have existed. 3 months later, A Tuesday morning in Richmond, Olivia Palmer walked through the glass doors of the FBI field office the same way she always had. Badge clipped to her belt, blazer pressed, stride steady. Same doors, same security desk, same coffee from the second-floor break room, same nod to the guard who knew her name. But not the same woman. Something had shifted. Not broken, sharpened. The way metal changes after it passes through fire. She still walked with confidence. She still smiled at colleagues in the hallway. But there was something behind her eyes now that wasn't there before. A weight she carried quietly, the way she carried her father's badge chain. Always there, never shown. The Caldwell County corruption case had produced 5 federal indictments. Watkins. 2 additional patrol officers who ran the same playbook on the same dark roads. An evidence clerk who made inconvenient items disappear from storage. And a dispatch supervisor who helped coordinate which stops would be recorded and which wouldn't. The man behind the curtain of corrupted body cameras. The network Olivia had been sent to uncover was dismantled, piece by piece, and every piece traced back to a night she spent on a concrete bench in a holding cell, choosing silence over safety, choosing the mission over herself. She'd received an official commendation, a letter from the director's office with language about exceptional courage and unwavering dedication to duty, a handshake from her section chief in front of the whole floor. People clapped. She nodded, said thank you, put the letter in her desk drawer, and went back to work. The commendation didn't mention the pebble in her jaw. It didn't mention the way cold asphalt feels against your cheek at 2 a.m. It didn't mention the 11 minutes she sat with her hands on the steering wheel while a man decided what to do with her. Official language doesn't have room for those details, but Olivia carried them anyway. At her desk, she paused. A framed photograph of her father sat next to her monitor. Detective Raymond Palmer, Norfolk Police Department. Broad smile, dress uniform. The photo was taken the year he made detective, 3 years before his heart gave out. He looked proud in the picture. The kind of proud that comes from earning something that wasn't handed to you. She touched the gold chain at her neck. His chain. The one that looked like costume jewelry to the deputies who processed her that night. The one they didn't confiscate because they didn't look closely enough. They never looked closely at anything about her. And that was the whole problem, wasn't it? That evening, she called her mother. Denise picked up on the first ring. The way she always did, the way she always would. Hey, baby. Hey, Mama. A pause. The comfortable kind. The kind that only exists between 2 people who don't need words to fill space. You were right, Mama. About what? About everything. Denise was quiet for a moment. Olivia could hear the television in the background, turned low, could hear her mother settling into her chair the way she did every evening. Then, softly, the voice of a woman who spent her whole life worrying about someone she loved walking out the door in a world that didn't always see them clearly. I always am. You coming home for dinner Sunday? I'll be there. Caldwell County looked different now. Not transformed. That word is too big and too clean for what actually happened. Reformed. Slowly. Painfully. The way institutions change when they're forced to look at what they've been doing. Chief Townsend, under federal oversight and pressure from the county board, implemented mandatory changes across the department. Real-time body camera uploads to a cloud server. No more local files. No more convenient deletions. Independent civilian review of all nighttime traffic stops. Annual racial bias audits conducted by an external firm with no ties to the department. Mandatory de-escalation training for every officer renewed yearly, with consequences for non-completion. New policy, new protocols, new oversight. Words on paper that meant nothing unless the people wearing the badges chose to follow them. Reforms don't undo damage. They can't return 3 years to a father who missed his daughter growing up. They can't unpress a cheek from pavement. They can't unsay the words spoken on a dark road by a man who believed his badge made him right. But they can make the next stop different. They can make the next officer think twice before opening his mouth. They can make the next rookie speak up instead of standing 6 feet away in silence. And sometimes, that's the only direction justice knows how to move. Forward. One stop at a time. One policy at a time. One voice at a time. According to data from the Stanford Open Policing Project, black drivers are stopped at higher rates than white drivers in nearly every jurisdiction studied across America. In many of those stops, the stated reason was later determined to be unsubstantiated, fabricated, made up on the spot by someone who had already decided what they were looking at. Olivia Palmer had a badge in her glove box. Most people don't. Yo, this story's fiction, but the pain? That's real. Now imagine that's you on the pavement, badge in the car. Stay silent or speak up. Comments. And if this hit different, like, share, subscribe. That's it.